After each and every twist and turn that has led us to where we are in the search for a new Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives, most people would use the phrase, "Now I've seen everything." However, after today's events, nobody can use that phrase anymore. Because frankly, given what's happened, there's no way to predict what's going to happen in this race for the next Speaker of the House. Hang on, folks, I'll tell you what's been going on because this has been one of the wildest days yet, where one man gets the GOP nomination to become the Speaker, then withdraws his name, then the GOP caucus votes again. Now they've settled on a fourth individual to possibly be Speaker. So hang on, the story goes a little something like this. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Step on up to my electronic front porch and let's talk. Another wild set of circumstances, another twist, another turn. Will this saga for the speakership ever end? I don't know, but I'll tell you one thing from a perspective of a guy like me, this is a whole lot of fun. And believe me, it started out looking pretty bad today, but for conservatives and populists, it may be that there's a silver lining in this crazy cloud. So let's get into it because there's a whole bunch of information, a whole bunch of angles, and a whole bunch of analysis to talk about. We're going to start with a headline that pretty much summed up how the day was going to go from thehill.com. Emmer bid collapses, extending extraordinary GOP losing streak. Article by Emily Brooks and Michael Schnell. We read the following. House Majority Whip Tom Emmer, Republican of Minnesota, speakership nomination collapsed in extraordinary fashion Tuesday, surviving only 4 hours and showcasing the complete chaos enveloping the House GOP conference. Emmer withdrew his name from the running shortly after winning a fifth-round nomination ballot amid a field of crowded candidates. He trounced 6 other Republican lawmakers to secure the conference's nomination. But minutes later, a contingent of Republicans made clear they would not back him on the House floor, making it virtually impossible for him to secure enough votes to win the gavel. Making matters worse for Emmer, former President Trump released a scathing statement calling the majority whip, quote, a globalist rhino, and saying voting for him would be, quote, a tragic mistake. For Emmer, known to his colleagues as being a hockey coach, the ice was too thin to skate on, and he announced his decision to withdraw his name from consideration Tuesday afternoon. Okay, let's get into this. Tom Emmer's name, when it was announced that he would be running for Speaker, absolutely made the collective skin crawl on every conservative and populist and libertarian out there. Nobody was really fond of McCarthy, and nobody really liked Scalise, although you could tolerate him maybe. But Emmer, given of the three of them, is the worst of the bunch, a voting record that would make a Democrat happy. Plus, on top of that, he was no friend to Donald Trump, which, if Donald Trump is reelected to the presidency in 2024, he's going to need a speaker that he can work with. And if the Republicans were to retain the majority in 2025, he definitely did not want to be working with Emmer. Now, the article mentions a statement by Donald Trump, and this, I won't say sealed the deal on Emmer not getting the nomination to go to the floor, but it most certainly rallied conservatives in the House to the idea of, from Donald Trump's Truth Social page, quote, I have many wonderful friends wanting to be Speaker of the House, and some are truly great warriors. Rhino Tom Emmer, who I do not know well, is not one of them. He never respected the power of a Trump endorsement or the breadth and scope of MAGA, Make America Great Again. He fought me all the way and actually spent more time defending Ilhan Omar than he did me. He's totally out of touch with Republican voters. I believe he has now learned his lesson because he is saying that he is pro-Trump all the way, but who could ever be sure? Has he only changed because that's what it takes to win? The Republican Party cannot take that chance because that's not where the America First voters are. Voting for a globalist rhino like Tom Emmer would be a tragic mistake. Now, I'm sure a lot of people will sit there and say that Trump is engaging in one of his favorite things, verbal hyperbole. However, some of what he says in there is true. Emmer is no friend of America First or the MAGA crowd in the House or out in the country in general. His speakership would be nothing more than the perpetuation of the Washington establishment's control of power over money, particularly as it comes out of the House of Representatives. Emmer would not have been a good choice. So, realizing that he couldn't win if it was taken to the floor, he withdrew his name. Now, it's one thing for the House Republicans to line up against Emmer. It's another thing for Trump to do it. And apparently Trump drew the ire of not House Republicans necessarily, but their colleagues over in the Senate. Take a look at this. This article is from Politico.com. Headline: GOP senators irked at Trump for tanking latest speaker nominee, box out the outside influences. Article by Burgess Everett and Ursula Perano. Senate Republicans are peeved that former President Donald Trump's influence tanked the latest speaker nominee, Tom Emmer. Now they're hoping House Republicans will just ignore Trump's takes on the race altogether. Quote, "I was disappointed in it," said Kevin Cramer, Republican of North Dakota. "As much as I like Donald Trump and I support him, I think it's too bad that the members of the House would be influenced by it. I couldn't care less what Donald Trump thinks about the Speaker of the House. What I care about are the members who can vote on him and get it done," said Tom Tillis, Republican, North Carolina. "They should box out outside influences and lead." Well, as always, Trump, if nothing else, is making friends and influencing people. I say with tongue perfectly planted in cheek. Now, to give you an idea of how desperate things were getting for the House Republicans, Kevin McCarthy floated an idea, which I don't think he was doing necessarily out of the kindness of his heart or wanting the best for this House. Take a look at this. This is from NBCnews.com, and I find this to be fascinating. McCarthy floats partnership with Jim Jordan as Assistant Speaker. Ali Vitale and Scott Wong, and this was posted around 7 o'clock p.m. Eastern this evening. Amid the impasse, McCarthy is floating a plan that would reinstall him as Speaker and make Jordan a conservative Trump ally, the Assistant Speaker, according to 3 sources familiar with McCarthy's pitch. Asked why the idea, which lacks key details, like how it would be enacted or whether it could even gain enough traction to happen, was being floated now, a GOP lawmaker replied, quote, "We're desperate." While the idea might seem far-fetched and has not been pitched broadly within the GOP conference, it is being discussed among some Republicans after Emmer, the 3rd GOP nominee, dropped his bid. A source briefed on the idea likened it to Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Assistant Speaker Katherine Clark's arrangement that the Democrats had. Kevin would be the Speaker, Jordan would be the Assistant Speaker, the source said. 2 GOP lawmakers described McCarthy as having melted down in conference meetings today because they said he is losing his ability to handpick a new speaker. Well, that's not hurting my feelings too much. Oh, I'm sorry. That's not in the article. He had 2 outbursts behind closed doors today, the sources said, that were about his objections to quickly moving to a nominating vote for Representative Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. Keep that name in mind, folks. The runner-up to Emmer, the lawmaker said, quote, "This isn't how you elect a speaker," McCarthy said in the room, a lawmaker reported. A McCarthy spokesman did not immediately respond to his request for comment. Folks, are you catching what McCarthy's trying to do here? This guy is still so pissed off about losing the speakership that in the name of trying to get the House back to good order, he's floating the idea of getting himself back into the speakership and dangling the bait of using Jim Jordan as the Assistant Speaker. Well, I got bad news from McCarthy. You're never going to get control of the Speaker's gavel again. They'll never hand it back to you. If you think that getting in was hard enough, getting out was fairly easy for the House Republicans who voted to remove you, and frankly, given all your maneuvering behind the scenes over the past 13 days, no one in the House is going to put you back in, even your brethren out in California who don't have enough influence to get the rest of the votes anyway. But I digress. So, Emmer is out, The GOP is trying to figure out what to do, so what happens next? Well, we go to the Gateway Pundit. Headline: 6 GOP lawmakers in speaker's race after Trump scalps Emmer. That's an interesting way of putting it. But there's one lawmaker creating a buzz, and a buzz he did indeed create. So we take a look at what we've got here. A batch of new GOP lawmakers have jumped into the race for House Speaker after Trump scalped Rhino Emmer. Now, these names consist of the following: Byron Donalds of Florida, Chuck Fleischman of Tennessee, Mark Green of Tennessee, Kevin Hern of Oklahoma, Mike Johnson of Louisiana, Roger Williams of Texas. Now, 3 of these had already been in the race before: Donalds, Hern, and I believe Williams of Texas. Now, what happened next was a very interesting phenomenon, because voting took place over 3 rounds, and at the end of it, I think we've got somebody that the Republicans could, and more to the point, should vote for. We go back to thehill.com. Take a look at this. Headline: House GOP gives Mike Johnson speaker nod after whirlwind Emmer dropout. We read the following, again by Emily Brooks and Michael Schnell. House Republicans nominated Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, for Speaker Tuesday evening, making him the 4th GOP nominee to win the conference's nod and its 2nd nominee within a day after House Majority Whip Tom Emmer dropped out of the running amid GOP opposition. Johnson's nomination capped off the end of a whirlwind day, but forecasted signs of even more twists and turns in the Speaker saga as more than 3 dozen lawmakers signaled allegiance to former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The House GOP is becoming increasingly desperate in its quest to find a Republican who can win the Speaker's gavel after passing the 3-week mark since 8 Republicans joined Democrats to oust McCarthy. Now, let's talk about Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana. I will admit I didn't know a whole lot about him, and I did some homework in preparation for making this video. Everything that I've read so far, okay, me personally, yeah, I could get behind this guy if I were a member of the U.S. House of Representatives. If you don't believe me, let me show you just a handful of things here. Oh, before I do, to give you an idea of the dynamics of the voting on that 3rd ballot, take a look at this. This is from Benny Johnson's Twitter page. Mike Johnson, 128 votes. Byron Donalds, 29. Very respectable. But watch that other total of 44, because this is where it could get interesting. Johnson declared Speaker designee. Donalds backs Johnson. I think that's a smart move on Byron Donalds' part. Floor vote planned for noon tomorrow. Now, what do we know about Mike Johnson? Well, take a look at this. From the Twitter page of Joey Manarino, who is a conservative activist and also a campaign consultant, we read the following. Meet Mike Johnson, the 4th Speaker designee for the House, receiving 127 votes in the GOP conference. Mike has a Liberty score of 74%. Pretty solid. He's from the state of Louisiana, having served in Congress since 2017. All right, he's got some experience. Voting record mostly solid. All right. He's instrumental in getting the Texas amicus brief going in 2020 and voted against certifying the fraudulent 2020 election. I like this guy. He has not voted in favor of any funding for Ukraine other than the initial funding bill. Okay, I can get down with that. He supported Trump's ban on terror-prone nations. Yep, that checks one off for me. Served as a member of Trump's legal defense team during both the 2019 and 2020 Senate impeachment trials. Yep. He's extremely conservative on social issues. In 2022, he introduced the Stop the Sexualization of Children Act, which would prohibit federally funded institutions from promoting child sex, cesarean, and transgenderization. He's personal friends with Amy Coney Barrett. You can't pick them all. He's actually a great pick, though we just don't hear that much about him. I like Mike. How about you? Okay. Hey, from a conservative standpoint like mine, I can get down with this guy. Okay, he made a mistake on the initial funding bill for Ukraine, but ever since then he's been a solid no. And if he holds that position going forward in dealing with President Joe Biden, yep. If he's picked a speaker, I think a wise choice will have been made. Now, Where does it stand as far as this thing going to the House of Representatives? Now, take a look at this from justthenews.com. We read the following. Mike Johnson wins GOP conference vote to become latest speaker designee. Now, I want to take you deep into this article written by Ben Whedon. Florida Republican Representative Anna Paulina Luna, who backs Donald, stated that after the vote, Donald was supporting Johnson, and the speaker vote would occur at noon on Wednesday. Quote, Johnson got it. Byron is fully backing him. Speaker vote tomorrow at noon, she posted. Okay, so that sets up everything that's about to happen next. Let's talk about this. As I said, I could support Mike Johnson being outside of the Congress, and if I were a member of the House GOP, I could still vote for him. He's got a solid conservative record. Now, the challenges of the speakership are going to be many, and I'm not going to say he's going to be perfect. I don't expect perfection. But if his record as a member of the Congress gives any indication as the type of speaker he'll be, okay, I think he's got the possibilities of being a good one. The two biggest issues of our time facing us right now are voting for funding further the Ukraine war and the defense of the southern border, with what's going on in Israel being a close third. So, how is Johnson going to handle these challenges? Yet to be seen. Now, I will say this. Remember what I said about the final vote tally on ballot number 3? And I'll go back to Benny Johnson's tweet. Take a look at these numbers again. Johnson gets 128. Byron Donalds gets 29. Let's assume for a moment that those 29 go with Johnson's 128. So that would put him at about 157. Okay? With 44 voting other. Now, it's been reported in various places that people like John Duarte, who's a Republican representative from California, has every intention of voting for Kevin McCarthy on the floor of the U.S. House of Representatives. Keep an eye on these 44, because they could wind up gumming up the works again. But if they choose to do so, that presents an enormous problem, not just for them, but I'll also argue for Kevin McCarthy and other members of the House Republican leadership. Do you really want to keep on voting down conservative GOP nominee after conservative GOP nominee to only be exposed in the light of day as the ones that are holding up the business of the House and causing it not to get things done simply because you're butthurt over the fact that your boy McCarthy lost the speakership? Do you really want people to see that? Sooner or later, the House has to move forward. Now, don't get me wrong. I think they need to move forward with the right speaker, and I don't necessarily have an objection to it going as long as it has. But I will have an objection that this drags on for a month, 2 months, or 3. We need a speaker, and sooner or later, establishment House Republicans need to learn you have lost. You have lost with McCarthy getting kicked out. You've lost with the fact that you couldn't get Scalise in. You've lost with the fact you definitely couldn't get Emmer in. Your days of controlling everything that happens in the House, particularly in the Republican caucus, are over. Your surrender is being asked for. You will indicate your surrender when you vote for Mike Johnson as the next Speaker of the U.S. House of Representatives. I said in various videos, and I also said on my live stream on Saturday, Front Porch Brunch, that what's going on in this fight over Speaker isn't just about who controls the gavel. This is a generational and an ideological fight, and it's a fight to the death. It may very well be that this fight is about to come to an end. I think Mike Johnson has the potential to make a fantastic speaker. He's got the conservative bona fides going into this thing. How he handles the gavel and control of the House after he becomes speaker is going to determine what really happens and his measure in history. But if he wins, this is one more step toward conservatives and populists getting control of the appropriations process and maybe starting the process of returning some sanity to our governance here in America. My hope is that tomorrow that actually happens. But that's what I think about it. What do you think? Do me some favors as always as we start to wrap up this video. Number one, if you're not a subscriber to my channel, please do so. Number two, please leave a comment below. I would love to know what you think about all this. Number three, please hit the bell for notifications. I want to make sure that you're always aware when new videos, new live streams, new whatever is coming out. Number four, please share this video around to friends of yours who don't know about the electronic front porch. And finally, please give me a thumbs up. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative, and I will see you next time.